I am really delighted to introduce you to Samara Jaques, who is one of the funniest and smartest attorneys I have ever
Wow,
met,
way to, okay.
and who last time she was here gave an amazing talk about copyright and intellectual property. And we may have her back next term for that as well. But today she's going to focus. She can focus on whatever she wants, but the topic is business formation and legal 101. And you, all of you, are in the midst of doing this right now. And from what I recall, Samara is very interactive. So is it okay if they ask questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you do have a question, raise your hand because we are recording and so that we can have this for for future listeners. And so your firm is called the Legal
Latte Legal,
Latte Legal
PLLC. Yes.
PLLC. Yeah. And how did that come about?
Well, when I first started, people are afraid of lawyers, and I don't think I'm that scary, but I guess, yeah. But so I started taking people to coffee shops, and
Oh.
that's how I ended up as Latte Legal, so people feel more comfortable, over a cup of coffee, telling me what their issues were, and so that's how it started. Yeah.
And then you scare them.
Yes. Then after that, you terrify
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here,
Thank you.
Samara.
Okay. Okay. So Dimitri's one of my favorite people. He's very nice, and he let me be here again today. It's nice to meet all of you. I know that I've met other group of cohorts previously, and you all do really amazing things. So from the last group, so I'm sure this one's gonna be even better. So my name, I'm gonna make this a little bit not as presentation oriented. So I know that when you have your lectures, there's usually like slides that you're going to go through. This is only 2 slides. So it's going to be interactive because there's going to be a checklist that you can actually download from me. So my name is Somara Jaques, Esquire. I'm an attorney. I am Florida barred, but that means that I work with Florida businesses, but I also work with other businesses outside of Florida, mostly on IP. Does anyone know what IP actually means? You said, I saw you shake your head, so I'm going to point at you. You shape, no? Okay. IP is okay. Intellectual property. Okay, and intellectual property is basically what all of you are creating here. Your materials, your systems, your art, that's all going to be protected by IP, and that's what is going to be valuable and then either licensed or sold to another company later on. So in order to do that, you need to make sure that you have a legal foundation in order, okay? If anyone can share, what project are you currently working on now? Anybody can raise their hand. Go ahead.
Develop a product that uses the existing existing content material and kind of repackages it to
Okay.
market to educational institutions and
Okay.
who develop the content will actually require the project that I'm in now is kind of deciding like who owns it,
Oh,
whether like it's something that I can do. So that was actually why I was like, I don't know what it is, but
okay.
and so like the person I'm working with is like really interested in having me produce this material,
Mm-hmm.
but when it comes to the part of the project where I'm actually trying to sell the material,
Mm-hmm.
it walks a fine line on, what I can and can't do.
Okay. That's gonna possible more than likely be a copyright issue. So we're gonna circle back to you because you're asking a really complicated question, which is good. So let's start with this. So literally it's 2 slides. I'm gonna have you scan this QR code. That's gonna be a checklist that you're gonna use. That checklist is, if you access it right now, you'll be able to go ahead and go into a Google Drive that's accessible to everyone here. And it's going to have the checklist for how to create a business in the state of Florida. So I'm going to wait for all of you to get that on your phones. All right, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is create your business name. So does anyone have a name for their business already? Okay. And then have you already registered? This is going to be for Florida only. Have you already registered a business in Florida? Okay. Did you do a trademark search before you did your business? both on the state level and on the federal level. Okay, I'm getting those. All right, because you said you had several businesses, right? Okay, so you check. Okay, when you did your business search, when you did your search for your name, how did you do it? Just wondering.
Well, Florida first, and then
Okay, did you do a Florida corporate search or did you do a Florida trademark search? Okay, so you do that on Sunbiz. That's going to be the first one. Now, mind you, this is going to be for businesses that are registered in Florida, okay? Now, there's a cheat code that I give people, especially if you're starting out. There's a place called LLC University online. It's a really great resource where they show you how step by step to do different businesses in different states. Why this might apply to you is especially with IP, a lot of you are going to be getting investors. And most of your investors are probably going to have you start your business in Delaware if you have private investors, okay? If you're not with Delaware, also I know South Dakota actually has gotten very what's the word, popular because of its beneficial tax laws for people who are startups. Nevada also is one of them. And Florida actually isn't so bad. A lot of people have moved here because people who work in the tech space have moved to Texas and Florida, so they're doing a lot more businesses and startups here, okay? So you're gonna look up the name. Ico. Eco? Ico. Ico, I got it right the first time, good. Ico, did you wanna share the name of your business?
So mine is actually registered under like Wisconsin Consulting, and then I have a fictitious name, so it's like a little bit more.
Okay, great. We're gonna actually talk about that on the checklist too. So just give me any name. It doesn't matter actually.
Okay, so actually when you look it up, it is UZ um LATEGUI.
G what?
GUI.
GUI. Okay. How do you say that?
Who's Latin, but it's, and then you look up consulting.
Okay. You could usually find it from just the
The
first.
first one.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you see here, that would have been your first search. So if you were trying to use this name, okay, you wouldn't be able, you could possibly use it, but it's going to be an issue later on when you trademark your name because that person can do something called prior use. And I'll explain that in a second. So that's the first place that you're going to search. The second place that you're going to search is you want to search for a state trademark. So there's the federal trademark and there's a state trademark. Does anyone know the difference between the two? Who said that? Oh, Dimitri. Anyone want to try? I try to be as interactive as possible because I know a lot of you already have information. So I'd like to like expand on that. If you don't know, you don't know. That's fine. So state trademarks allow you to have trademark protection only in your state, right? It covers you, like let's say for instance, my firm is called Latte Legal. If I had a trademark in Florida and I filed for a trademark in Florida, it would only cover Latte Legal in the state of Florida. If somebody else filed for federal protection, right, they actually would have the rest of the United States and possibly Florida, and I have to fight them for that, okay? So I would have limited protection if I do state. If you do a federal trademark, that covers all 50 states and territories. So whenever you can, you want to try to do federal trademark protection, okay? So you're going to look like anybody would look to make sure that you can actually get the name. You want to go ahead and look at Sunbiz and do a trademark search for the state level. Oops. How do I go back? Okay. Because it's long, I'm just going to put something else just quickly, okay? So we're just going to go with, let's just call it, the name of the business is going to be called Loopy, okay? So these are all of the trademarks that are registered in the state of Florida. I looked up Loopy, I don't see it here, okay? So the name of our business is going to be Loopy, okay? Loopy Media LLC. So now we're going to go to federal, which is the Trademark Electronic Search System with the USPTO. That's the United States Patent and Trademark Office. and you're gonna search there.
And the search has gotten so much better.
Well, now it mirrors the World Intellectual Property Organization, so it's the same system that they use.
Well, it didn't used to show you pending before, and now it does, which is amazing. That's
Yeah.
like the best thing ever. Because
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yes.
So
The application form has.
no, it's the
so-
same.
Yeah.
It's the same.
So I noticed that you selected word mark.
Yes. Oh, thank you. It's automatic for me. Okay, so when you look, you have a couple of options. Because the trademark that you're looking for is going to be the actual words, the name, your brand name, you're going to look under word mark, okay? If you put under general search, wherever Loopy is, like let's say I work with a lot of entertainment clients. So let's say someone's name is Brian Loopy Green, right? So it's gonna show up even though his trademark has nothing to do with the word loopy in it, okay? So you always wanna look under word mark. If you have a logo, does anyone have a logo for their business? Okay, you have everything ready for your business, I love it. If you have a logo for your business, you're gonna have to go by mark description or design code. And in the actual checklist I gave you, there's webinars from the USPTO that are free that shows you how to look up logos, okay? So it's really helpful to make sure that you understand how the search system works, because what happens is, this happened to several people that I know and a potential client that had come to me, is that they had spent money on their business, they registered the name with their state, they got everything ready, they had been working for 3 years, and then someone else had prior use. So they had to basically rebrand everything, start everything over, get a new EIN. So just, maybe an hour or two of doing this will save you thousands of dollars. And it's free. All the searches that you saw here are free, okay? So here you see that there's 65 results. You've got Loopy Boys, Loopy and Co., but Loopy Boys is dead or abandoned. So
Eliminate the dead ones when you're doing it. Is it safe to do so?
not necessarily, because what can happen is you want to look at when it's become, well, I don't like the word dead, but when it's been abandoned, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's like, say, a month ago, that person can try to revive it. And then now you have a conflicting mark. So I had that happen to a lawyer friend of mine. She had registered the application for a client. The person who had the dead mark revived the mark, and now there was a conflicting mark, and her case was suspended because they had to wait for this other mark to proceed. So you do want to look at the dead
And they were
marks. They were actually, I don't want to make this a trademark thing. I literally did a trademark class before, like literally a DIY trademark class. It took like an hour and a half to go through everything. But there's something called coordinated classes. You see that there? So if the coordinated classes are on, let's say I say for 41, that's entertainment services or media company. Okay. All the other coordinated classes are going to show up. So 43, 3, 21, 42. So what can happen when you have a trademark? I don't want to go too far into trademarks. We can come back to it. Yeah. But it's going to happen, like, let's say that you have a trademark examiner. That's the person that's assigned to your case to look. They're going to see that, okay, there's Loopy Boys and Loopies. Let's say that you apply for Loopy Boys. So Loopies is in a coordinated class. It could have what we call a likelihood of confusion. And then you get something called an office action. And you have to say how yours is different from theirs because it's going to cause confusion in the marketplace. Remember that a trademark is not for you personally, it's for the consumer, right? So the consumer knows that they're buying from the right source. And if someone is trying to get Loopy Boys material and they get it conflicted with Loopies, that's going to be a problem. I don't know if this is an old movie, but I don't know if anyone knows Coming to America. Okay. Yes, the movie, not the process of coming to America. But McDonald's and McDougal's. Okay, same thing. That would be a likelihood of confusion issue because he was like, they have the golden arches. I forgot what he said, the golden arcs or something like that. So yeah, it was very close. It's very close, exactly. But because it's so close, right? Some people may have a false association with McDonald's and McDougal's, and so McDonald's is pretty vicious about making sure to protect their trademark. For instance, right now, Barbie from Mattel. There's a Barbie, Barbee, barbecue. It's an Atlanta-based company, and Barbie Mattel is suing Barbie BEE, and she's like, I don't understand why you would sue me, but it doesn't matter that it looks different; it sounds the same. So even if it, or if it's, I had this for my case actually. This is
Just Barbie sell dolls at the barbecue?
no. She sells, well, to them it's not. That's the thing, because the coordinated classes is important to know. So you have certain classes that as an entrepreneur, maybe you can't afford right now to expand into. So Barbie, right? What Barbie, the barbecue place, Barbie BARBIE might expand into restaurants. Like Ford, you know, the car company, they have a restaurant. So you want to be able to protect the ability for you to enter into different goods and services because you have prior use.
Is that preemptively like that though? Because I thought the whole trademark was either in use or intend to use. So if Barbie doesn't open a restaurant in the next 6 months or whatever, like, I mean, I know they have more money and they have all the lawyers, but can they really just blanket protect themselves for everything, even if they're not businesses that they're actually?
I'm glad you asked. Some businesses are, or some companies are so ubiquitous that they become famous. And then if it's a famous brand, it's very difficult to overcome. So, like for instance, I had a client who wanted to trademark the name Jedi. And I told him there's absolutely no way in heck that we're going to be able to get Jedi for you. The Force is not with us. Exactly. So it did not work for him. But that's, so if you have a famous enough mark.
So much, and I'm sorry I'm distracted with
I mean, we
this.
can come back for a trademark one. I love trademarks. I do them all the time. I'm doing a couple now, and I had one, which, to mention likelihood of confusion, just the last thing. If it's a different language, like it was pretty tenuous. It was 2 churches actually. So let me see if I can find it. It was Full Life Church and Iglesia Full Life. So there was a likelihood of confusion because the word iglesia in Spanish means what? In English means what?
The same.
It means church. Okay, so
Because I'm assuming they were churches, right?
well, you can disclaim the word church, but the problem is that church was in theirs and church was in ours. And so we ended up having to go to TTAB, which is trademark court, over it. And it took us about 1.5 years. We finally got over that hump and we won, thankfully, but it took a long time.
How much that ended up costing them?
Well, I didn't charge the church, but if I had charged the church, that would have cost them $15,000. Yeah, it's expensive.
A lot more than the 250 application fee.
Well, now, there's T's, there's T's plus and there's T's standard. T's plus is 250. T's standard is 350. T's plus has a lot more pitfalls for somebody, so I always tell people to do T standard, which is a little more expensive, but it's actually not as expensive on the back end because what happens with the T's plus, there's a penalty. It's $100 hidden penalty if you get it wrong. Most people do, especially if you're a DIY. So then they'll add the penalty, and then if you don't do it exactly right, they'll knock you out and you have to start over again. So it's better to spend the $350 on the T's plus, T standard, I'm sorry, than the T's plus. Okay. And also, just a little trademark T, I guess. If you want to have more than one class, each class is $350. So that's a class is a category of good or service that you're doing. So let's say you can only afford $350 now, right? But you need 2 categories. Does anyone here sell clothes?
What?
Clothes? Okay, perfect. So clothes is in class 25, okay? But then you have a website, like an e-commerce website, that's class 35, okay? So if you're applying for both on your own, that would cost you 350 times 2 is $700. Okay, perfect. That's quick. I like that. Okay. So what you can do if you have, which again, this is ended up being a trademark class, but if you have a 1A application, which means that it's in use now, you're selling your products, and the important caveat is you've sold it to someone outside of your state. So if you're only making sales in Florida, you can't get federal protection. You have to make your first sale outside of state lines because there's interstate commerce and intrastate commerce. For federal protection, it has to be inter, I-N-T-E-R, state commerce, okay? So when you do that, you can apply for 1A. And if you apply for 1A, you can apply for both applications, but for both classes, class 25 and class 35, but only pay $350 at the start.
Can I mention that 1A and 1B, it's intend to use and in use, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So 1A is actual use, And 1B is, I always say, about to use. So you're not using it yet. It's when you're reserving the name. If anyone knows who Tyra Banks is, she's a model. She did the thing called SMILES, where you smile with your eyes. So before she actually went on America's Next Top Model, she filed her trademark as a 1B, intent to use. And so what you do is basically you're reserving your name until you can actually make that first sale or provide that service to someone outside of your state. Okay, it's a little more expensive, but it makes sure that you have that protection. Nobody else can hopefully use it because you have prior use. And when I say prior use, this is also something you need to know. Okay, the US government, the way that it works is that if you want to have a trademark, you need to be a first to use and not a first to file. So in a lot of countries, if you're the first person to file the trademark, you get the trademark, no matter when you used it. But in the US, let's say, can you give me not the name of your actual business? I don't have your name. I'm sorry. Okay, the neighborhood architects. Let's say you already have, you're selling your, clothes on your website and you're doing all the good things. And then another company, because this happens sometimes too, but you started selling, when did you actually start selling? Like year? When did you actually start selling? Like what year?
2021.
Okay, 2021. Let's say that there's a Nigerian company and they also have a website and it's called the Neighborhood Architects and they also sell clothing, but their prior use was in 1995. Okay, and then they go and they apply here in the US with that prior use, right? And let's say it's the exact same time that you're having your application, you could get knocked out because their use was before your use. Okay,
Even though it's not in the States.
even though it's not in the States. So that's always, and now you have to fight it, right? That's usually what has to happen here. And most 9 times out of 10, most people aren't willing to go ahead and deal with that headache, but sometimes they are, depending on how profitable they are. And with clothing companies, those can get profitable very quickly, right? So that's just something to think about as well. So then another layer that you can add on is to look at the World Intellectual Property Organization search, which is what I normally do too for my clients, even though we're only doing, well, this is for the patents, even though we're only doing a US trademark, it's always good to look and see if you're gonna have any upcoming issues. Okay, so we go to the global brand database. Now, WIPO means the World Intellectual Property Organization. And if you notice, their search system is very similar to our search system because we just recently upgraded it to match theirs. So theirs is a little bit different. So if I'm looking,
That have the IC categories versus ours.
we have IC categories too.
But are they matched because of this, or are they?
Well, that's from before. That has to do with the NICE classifications. Yeah, there was a treaty involved, but the international classification is for worldwide, everybody. Yeah. So we looked up wordmark before. Where would I find that here? What is it called on this screen? Because wordmark is your brand name. So where would I find that here? Brand name. So we said Loopy. Gonna hit search. All right, now notice, same thing. They don't use dead, they use expired, which I think is nicer. But there's Loopy in Japan. There's Loopy in Thailand. It tells you the classes. It tells you the dates. So you're not going to be confused or like concerned if that happens because you already have a plan of attack before that happens. So if I looked up the neighborhood architect right now on WIPO, right, and I saw that somebody else was using it, I would be like, okay, well, are they in the same class? Number one. Are they in a coordinated class? Number two. Do I register anyway ahead of time to have my state protection? Because usually they still have to, if they're an outside organization, they're outside the country, they're not a US company, they have a bigger hill to climb, right? Because there's preference for American businesses. You are going to have to get an attorney for something like this, okay? Don't try to go into TTAB on your own. I've seen people do it. It's not great. So, but also knowing this ahead of time lets you have a plan and lets you have maybe a reserve. You're like, okay, I know I have to set aside this amount of money because this is going to be an issue that's may come up for me, okay? You can also change your name a little bit. So is anyone here into skincare? maybe? Okay. Does anyone know who Kim Kardashian is? Okay, that's easier. Okay. So I think she has a thing called it's Skin. Yes. Thank you. Okay, you know. So there was a trademark issue because there was another previous brand that had the same name. So what she did and her lawyers did is they made it Skin by Kim. So just adding that by Kim at the end allowed her to move forward with the trademark protection. So that's why I'm telling you, like, I know this feels like a lot of information at the very beginning before you even registered your name to be like, well, do I have to look at all these places? But it's gonna save you a lot of money. Because usually when you come to me, it's gonna be way more expensive because I'm correcting an error that was made instead of helping you form at the very beginning. Okay?
So the truth is, if you're creative, find a name that isn't used.
Yes, there's 4 levels of names. There's generic, right? So like if I had an Apple company, I named it the Apple company, right? I'm not gonna get that. There's descriptive, where I would say, how would you describe an apple?
A green fruit,
No,
sometimes
like
red,
like
sometimes
flavors
go-
wise.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like delicious, crisp, those types of things. That's gonna be descriptive of the apple, right? So that's not going to that's a you can probably get protection, but it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. A good example is there's a company called Black Girl Sunscreen. It's a sunscreen that's marketed towards black girls. They were considered descriptive and they had a higher hill to climb, right? With the USPTO. Then you have arbitrary. So like Apple for computers. The name has nothing to do with the actual business. That's an actual better chance of getting protection. And then there's fanciful, so a made up name.
Like Kodak was.
Yes, or I'm gonna make up a name. Webatobe, okay? That would be a made up name, and I would probably have a very good chance of getting it if no one else has it. Or if it's not someone's actual name, which is something you gotta look at too. Did everyone get that? Okay, I am very interactive because I'm gonna need your help with this, so I'm looking at you. Okay, hi. All right, so
I have one that's based on my name. It's my last name dot XYZ. It's my new domain.
okay,
Should I trademark that?
you should probably trademark the name itself. And what you can do is, I also did something about this. You can file it under your business. Is it what do you say?
Turn is my official LLC.
Yeah, well, you can do it like Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson has a bunch of trademarks under its
Right.
business, which I always tell people is a smarter way to do it.
Mhm.
So have a name not related to your trademark, hopefully, and then have your trademarks underneath that company. Usually a holding company that's separate from your operating company.
Turn is my design practice. It has, yeah. But as an artist, I've been using shami.xyz a lot, and I got the domain, and I've been wondering if I should actually trademark
You
it.
should I would trademark just your name first.
My full name or
if you
just the
can.
last name?
Just the last name.
Okay,
Just
yeah.
like Fenty, right? And then put it whatever class that you have, and then you can do XYZ.
Okay.
Or you can do both. That's fine, but it's your actual name.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to do something else, which is a consent form that I literally did this like 2 weeks ago. But it's a consent form that says you're allowing this company to use your name. Okay, so
Okay.
we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super.
Where are we? Yes.
You have just mentioned you were going to say something. I would recommend that you have a holding company name unrelated, and then you said
An
put the
opera.
trademarks under that. Could you just go through what you were saying with the structure before?
Sure,
Start the
sure. Okay,
conversation
and
on that?
also attorneys, you'll know this, will do disclaimers. I'm not recommending anything because none of you are my clients. I'm just giving you education and information. But usually best practice, if you can, is to have 2 companies. You're always gonna start out with your operating company. So that's the company you're actually doing business in. Eventually, as more money, more problems, right? So as you get bigger, more people are going to come after you. And the problem with that is if you lose, whether you're right or wrong, I can come after you in something called a judgment, which means I can come after your assets. And your assets are actually your intellectual property. That's part of it. So I can literally convert your trademark, own it, and then I now have it. Okay? So what you want to do is have 2 separate companies. I'm not going to go too far into it because this is more high level and there's a trust involved and you can hide it legally and you can put it in a different country if you want to, but we're not going to go there. So you just want 2 different companies.
Was this other company?
Okay.
Really
Okay,
wanted
I'll get to your question. So there's two parts that you want to have. You want to have your operating company, and then eventually you're gonna want to. And I get it. We're all starting somewhere. You're gonna put all of your IP under there, and then eventually you're gonna create a holding company, preferably in a different state, preferably under a trust, so nobody knows it's owned by you. And then you're going to take all of your IP, and you're gonna do a really simple thing called an assignment. It's a simple contract that says operating company is assigning, which means you're wholly transferring your IP to holding company. Now holding company owns it. So if they come after you in court, and let's say you lose, you're scaring me with that face. And let's say you lose, then that means they can only come after what's in the company. Okay? Not in the holding company. Right, because A, they don't know it exists, and B, they can only come after, that's why the protection of an LLC is important. They can only come after what you have in the company. So if your company has $0, right, too bad, unfortunately, there's really not much that you can get from a carcass, right? So you do the best that you can with that. Your question was next.
Okay.
And then your question.
So say for instance, just hypothetically,
Okay.
I have Yen Design Studio, right? Now the Yen Design Studio is trademark owned in Florida.
Okay.
I also have the Neighborhood Architects that is owned by Yen because it's a DBA,
Okay.
but the Neighborhood Architects is trademarked as well, right?
Okay.
I have a holding company
Okay.
in Delaware.
Okay.
Now, say for instance, that's in standing right now. Now, say for instance, I'm trying to create ownership of a material. Would it be smart that Yen is under my holding company
Just to
in
make sure.
Delaware?
Hold on 1 second. We're lawyers. We can't know this.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Just being
But
informed.
this is a separate question.
We can have this.
Yes.
Because I feel like
Thank you.
there's
Thank you. Yes.
there's
sorry.
confidential issues happening
Thank you.
here.
Yes.
I
sorry.
understand. We don't want to get anybody in trouble with the non-disclosure or confidentiality. So I'll be here for another like hour after for questions. So let's set some ground rules. Everything's general. That's why I use Loopy as the name, right? No apologies. It's a good question. Because we're just doing general questions here. You got out of it, so I'm not picking on you. But just to establish step one. Step one is we're looking up the name. So there are 4 levels if you are starting a business in Florida where we start for that. So where's the first place we're going to look to see if your name is usable? Sunbiz, under 2 parts. Under business search and under trademark name search, okay? And then what's the second place we're going to go?
USPTO.gov.
Okay, stop. You already know. Okay, someone else besides Dimitri. Anybody? You? Yes, awesome. USPTO test. That's the trademark electronic search system to see if your name is taken by someone else. And then if we're going a step further, because you want to know, every business, as soon as you have a website, is an international business, right? So you're gonna look where? It's up there. WIPO, yes, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and there's their global brand database. Okay, you guys are doing good. Okay. All right, so after you've done the clearance, the second thing that you're going to do is get a business address. And I'm going to ask you true or false. True or false, your business address is available by public search in the state of Florida. I can find your business address if I go on Sunbiz. True or false? True. Is it a good idea to use your personal address? Okay. Not saying anyone in this room has done it, but does anyone know anyone who's used their personal address to register their business? That is brave. I appreciate that you said that. Okay. So if you do that, okay, I lost the source. If you do that, that means that anybody can find you, your personal address. So what you want to do is get a virtual address, right? You can do it through a co-working space. You can do it through USPS, not USPS, I'm sorry, UPS. There are different places where you can get them. They're super cheap. They're not expensive. And it'll give you that extra level of protection when you're registering with your state. Any state, actually, okay? That place I told you about, LLC University, they have their own registered agent who also has a business address you can use. There's places like iPostal that have business addresses. Regis has virtual business addresses. I'm not endorsing any of these companies. These are just places that you can go, okay? All right, so we moved on. We got your business address. In the checklist, now you're going to step 3. So is anyone on the checklist? Can someone tell me what step 3 is? We've done 1, we found the name. We've done 2, you have your business address. Now we're on 3. 3? That was 4. I like where your head's at, but 3. Yes, register your LLC with Sunbiz, okay? And to make it easier for you, I have business name selected, and then you're gonna insert the name of the business that you've already chosen. And then you're going to click on that link, and that's where you can e-file. It's gonna cost you $155. You wanna have the actual registration, and then you want to have the $30 certificate. Okay. Now, optional step. This is why, Nico, you're the star now, okay? You have a yes.
The LLC has to have the same name as your brand that you're trademarking, or it's not necessarily?
No, remember we just talked about this? So remember, Johnson & Johnson is the company, but they own a bunch of different brands. I think it's best to have a separate LLC name from your trademark name, and this is why. Sometimes your trademarks don't go through, right? And now you're gonna get a cease and desist on your actual business name, so you can no longer use it. And I bet at this point you've already set up a bank account, you have your EIN number, you may have your website. All of those things have to go down now, right? So that's why it's smarter and safer just to have a separate name for your LLC and then put the brands underneath it. If you're not gonna do that, which happens, right? My business is called Latte Legal PLLC. So if I wanted to get the Latte Legal trademark, that's, it is what it is, right? But it's always best practice to try to put a different name and then DBA your trademark, your brand name, okay? And this is where the DBA part comes in. So there's something called the fictitious name. It's not, did I lose it? Oh no, it's back on. Oh, it needs your face. Thank you. Okay. So the steps for that, we'll just make it real simple, is that you're going to file in Sunbiz for a fictitious name, okay? And the fictitious name is gonna be your DBA name, and that's what you can be known as. So let's say, can you give me an example of a company name? We'll use Loopy still. So we have Loopy Media LLC, and then the fictitious name is going to be DBA Loopy Designs, okay? And that's the trademark that I'm looking to get. So when you do the fictitious name, the steps are pretty simple. You're gonna have to pay the fee on Sunbiz, but then you're going to have to do one extra requirement, which is the publication requirement. So wherever your business is located, whatever county it's located in, you have to register, put a notice of publication in the newspaper for that county. Okay? So for instance, when I do DBAs for my clients in Miami, I always use the Miami Herald. All right? So let's say you're in Broward, what would you use? Sun Sentinel, perfect. Palm Beach, I know they have a newspaper. I don't know what it is. Okay, Mr. Newspaper, I like it. Okay, so you would use that one, okay? So you have to use that publication notice. That's a little extra step for a fictitious name. Oh, I'm glad that you asked. It's either digital or physical. All of the ones that I do are digital publications. So you literally, and I gave you a notice, a sample that you can use in the checklist. So you put the notice, you put the insert name of business here, the place of the business address, and then you apply for like 3 days with the Miami Herald. Last time I checked, it costs about $20 to do. They're very cheap. And you need to make sure to keep a copy of it. There's a repository where they're all there, public record, but it's just easier to hold on to it. No one's ever in the state of Florida actually gone after anybody for a fictitious name, but you don't know when they're gonna start because you don't know whenever they need money, right? So just make sure to have it in your files. Now, step 4. That's right. Apply for an EIN. And what's an EIN? I'm sorry? Yes, but what does that mean?
It's like I want the number of your taxes.
Right, right. It's like a social security number for your business. Exactly. Okay, and what I did is if you look up EIN, the only thing also you should know as when you own your business, and for those of you who already registered, has anyone gotten like random emails about the BOI requirement from like advertisers being like, you need to register here, right? Or somebody will send you an email being like, hey, you haven't done your registration here, right? And on the bottom, it's a scam because it'll say that they're not affiliated with this agency and that it's an advertisement. But this happened to a friend of mine, which I was like, why didn't you call me first? They applied for their BOI through My Florida Corporate Filings. If you see anything from those people, delete it immediately, okay? So My Florida Corporate Filings, and then they were like, the next step for the BOI, which I'm gonna talk to you about in a minute, is pay $400. You don't pay $400 for that. That's a registration that the federal government requires you to do, right? So that costs no money.
Last
And-
year, we had a student applying to the USPTO,
Mm-hmm.
and we were in class, and he said to me, oh, I'm on the phone with the USPTO office. And he had just applied. And so I'm just sitting here, we're having this conversation, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. I walk outside, and he had just given them $400. It was a total scam. He had to cancel his credit card,
Yeah.
change all of that stuff. And we don't even know, because we applied together online
Mhm.
on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how, like, anybody knew that they had details about his application, not even a week later to be able to do this. We never figured out how.
Well, if it's a week later, then it's on. Remember, everything's public record. So there are companies that go through and look. Like I don't know if anyone's ever gotten into a traffic accident ever. I've gotten into two before. But you'll have attorneys that'll call you immediately, right? And say like, do you need an attorney? Same thing with the USPTO or any of these other places. They'll see that maybe you forgot to file something or that you are filing now your trademark. There's a lot of trademark scams. So just make sure if you're gonna get something from the USPTO, it's gonna be a .gov, number one. Number two, they're never gonna call you. The government doesn't call you. They don't really care whether you do it or not. They don't care if you miss a deadline. They'll send you an email. You need to make sure to be diligent with your emails. If you miss the email, you don't respond, they're not gonna talk to you. I get calls from the USPTO oftentimes from examiners. They'll call attorneys, but they won't call individuals. They'll send you an email, okay? Thank you for bringing that up. But okay.
But it does bring up a whole thing about how like what you said about the address and anonymizing it. Like when you do enter the public space as a business, there's a lot of opportunistic, whether it's actual scams or just, like I get letters that say, oh, would you like to apply for your trademark in some global random thing, or who's who of whatever, and
Yeah.
just because you've sort of entered that space, people become aware of you automatically, and then they start to, create these approaches, which often pretend to look official. Like you said.
Exactly.
You have to look really hard at that envelope to know it's not a federal or governmental agency, making the request.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So just it's important to know that what case in point, great point, is that's why I give you the checklist, because I normally just do the presentations, but I figured the checklist with the actual links will be better. Because if I put an EIN here, what do you see? First.
So sponsored link.
Okay, apply, they're gonna charge you. Apply, they're gonna charge you. What's the third one? That's the right one. Okay? So you just want to be diligent about where you're applying, know the links that you're supposed to go to, know the actual organization you're supposed to apply with, and then it's going to be much easier for you to make sure that no one is taking your hard work, okay? All right, now this is the scary part, but it's October, so it's fine, scary season. Who started their business in 2023 or before? Okay, all right, this applies to you. Okay. Who started their business this year? 2024. Okay. All right. Who's going to start a business next year? No? Okay, we don't know yet. All right. Who's Sissy? Okay, awesome. All right, so there is something called the Corporate Transparency Act. It was passed a while back, but it didn't take effect until this year. And what the Corporate Transparency Act does is that there's something called FinCEN, which is the Financial Crime Enforcement Network. Okay, it's a federal division, and it's supposed to stop scams and basically crime in businesses. And a lot of businesses do crime through LLCs and offshore companies. Okay, so what FinCEN did, and part of this requirement is that you have to do a BOI reporting requirement. And BOI is the beneficial ownership information. So if you own more than 25% or more of a company, you have to file with FinCEN. Does anybody know that? Okay. Okay, amazing. All right. If you had your business in 2023 or before, you have until January 1st, 2025 to file. If you filed this year and you started your business in 2024, you have 3 months from the date that your business is registered with your state for the deadline. If you haven't done that by the deadline, then you are starting to get charged $591 a day for your failure to comply. After you fail to comply for a certain amount of time, which is willful, and they don't tell us when that is, you can get up to 2 years of jail, and you can get up to $10,000 additional civil penalty. Okay? It's a free thing to file, but I've noticed there's a lot of websites. I know that SunBiz actually has something up there to remind people who are Florida businesses to do this, but that will say, hey, you haven't filed yet. You need to file with us. It's going to cost you money. And people will pay it, think that they're done. They haven't actually filed. So I put the link in there for you. Please, if you do nothing else today and you already have a business, please make sure to check when your deadline, like when you registered your business, okay? And know if you registered your business before 2023 and before, do it before January 1st, 2025, okay? There is a case that's currently on appeal that really only applies to people who are in a certain business group, but it's being appealed, and I don't think that they're going to win, and it won't apply to you, so you won't be able to not apply for your BOI, okay? So please don't risk it. I'm glad you asked. Okay, so are all of you, do you have any business partners? You do? Okay. More than one?
Will, yes.
Okay, so 3? Okay, so I'm assuming you're splitting everything equally as far as ownership. No? Okay, then maybe I'm wrong. Depending on your operating agreement, if you own 25% or more, you have to register with BOI. Like you have to let them know that you're an owner, a beneficial owner. If for whatever reason, because we'll talk about operating agreement in a second, one person can file for everybody, but you have to include all the people who are beneficial owners. Yes, you're and an image of them. Yeah, I actually gave you a link, 2 links, to my Substack, which is free. It walks you through the steps, and I have like a step-by-step walkthrough for people who have businesses before 2024. So 2024.
You were saying you have to. What happens if you change? What happens if the?
Oh, okay. So you do an initial application, and then if you change, you have to go back on FinCEN and you have to do an update, right? So anytime your beneficial ownership changes, you have to go ahead and let them know. But you only have to do it when it changes. So if let's say you keep the business the same and never changes, the beneficial owner stays the same, even if you add new partners, but everybody still owns the same amount, then you can just leave it as is. You don't have to make any changes.
In the reporting system, if you have kind of a driver's license or passport, because they require that, if it's located, let's say, on your Mac computer in your library of images, it won't pull it out of there. You need to move it to a folder on your desktop or somewhere else, and then the process would kind of.
They need a file on your computer.
But it's kind of funny glitchy thing where it cannot pull from another application's folder. It needs to be somewhere else.
If you want, like I said, it's where it says free workshop for mailing list members. That literally walks you through. So that link under 5 will walk you through the steps for a business that was created December 31st, 2023 or before. Okay. If you have a business now, you have 90 days from the date that you created your business and it's registered with your state. And there's only one extra thing that you have to do. I probably will just do another free, like on the Substack, if you want to go back or if you subscribe, then I'll probably do another one before the end of the year. And it used to be $500, but because of inflation, now it's $591 a day for the fine. So sorry. But the good news is you can do it like today and get it done and not worry about it. Okay? Any questions about BOI?
I need to get the link. I didn't get the link. It's on my iPad, but I didn't
I'll
get the QR.
okay. I'll give you the QR code. And or I'll just I have your
Yeah.
I'll just send you
Stressing.
I was gonna leave that for last, but I'm telling you, you don't have to stress because it's so easy to do. Like literally everybody, lawyers too, we were stressing about it before they actually implemented it, and it's probably the easiest thing that you can do. It's easier than setting up like your Wi-Fi at home. Okay, it's easy. I swear. They ask for the address of the beneficial owners, the mailing address of the beneficial owners, which, by the way, in case anyone's worried about their safety or protection, that's only going to be available to governmental entities and to police organizations. It won't be available to the general public.
That's what we said at the end.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you want to make a copy of that as well. Perfect. I mean, maybe you could do like a BOI thing here for them.
I mean, you could, like, so when you go to the BOI page, they have instructions. So there's a video recorded.
They do,
Yeah,
and
they walk you through it step by step.
they do, and they also have like while during the application, they have like a little informational buttons that you can click in case you're confused about certain things, like what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing.
We
But
can play that here, everybody can see it.
yeah, we could do it at the end, and then also in that link that I gave you, I do the same thing. I literally walk people through on because I knew this was something that people needed to do, and they're ignoring it. So, and it has really big implications, and nobody's talking about it for some reason. Okay, number 6 is discuss with your attorney, accountant, or a business assistance program like the Small Business Development Center about what you need to do moving forward. So what agreements you need, any local licenses that you may need, any taxes that you should be paying, okay? And hiring an attorney like me, even if we do flat fee, you're looking at about 10,000, 6,000. Small Business Development Center is free. And by free, I mean you pay taxes. So it's not really free. It's something that you have paid taxes for. So they will literally help you walk through and be, because I actually used the Small Business Development Center once. Very nice lady. She gave me a checklist. She told me what licenses I should be applying for, any permits that I needed, and then she helped me set up my QuickBooks because I was seeing how it worked, right? So you can do all of that for free. All you have to do is apply to the Small Business Development Center. And they have one here in Florida. I don't think it's at FIU, but I think it's at one of the universities they have it.
Is it like SCORE? Is that a different?
SCORE, I'm glad, it's also by the SBA, but that's like online educational workshops and webinars. This one, you have an assigned person to your case who literally walks you through. Let's say you need free contracts, they'll walk you through, get you through a legal clinic. That legal clinic, which FIU has a law school, right? They'll assign you to the legal clinic, which I think yours is called the Business and Innovation Clinic, and they'll create these contracts for you for free. Okay? So that way, I mean, as an entrepreneur, when you're starting out, you're bootstrapping. I know what that's like too. I'm still doing that oftentimes. So you want to be able to get as many free resources as you can. And to me, SCORE, SBA aren't free because you're paying taxes. So this is you just getting back what you're paying to the federal government. Okay? And I put a link for there. If you see business, I put invocation, but it should have been Innovation and Technology Clinic at FIU Law would help you with the free contracts. And the contracts that you need, this is important too. If you have an LLC, you want to have an operating agreement. The operating agreement is the roadmap that your company is going to follow to move forward and build and grow, add partners, do all the things, okay? Who's going to be your tax designee? That's something that you also want to include in there. If you have vendors, people who work with you, right, you're going to probably want an independent contractor agreement, right? You also want to have well, I'm not going to go too far with that because that might be too much for this class. But you'll want to have assignment agreement, work for hire agreement. So if somebody's working with you, especially on something that's your IP, they're not going to be able to say that it's theirs now. Okay, because the way that the copyright works with the US copyright, anybody who works on something creatively, you all have equal ownership until you have a contract that says otherwise. So let's say Dimitri and I, we worked on an art project together, right? And Dimitri did the whole mixed media project, right? But I added a sticker to it. Well, not a sticker. I added like 2 brush strokes to it, right? Those 2 brush strokes, now I evenly own that work with Dimitri by default. Sorry, Dimitri.
This is a real life example. She did 2 brush strokes.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. It's his best piece.
Yeah.
But now, what Dimitri would have given me, because he's smart and he already knows this, he would have given me a work for hire agreement. So anything that I would have done, right, on that would automatically belong to Dimitri because I have no copyright ownership of it. So that's important to have as well, okay? So at minimum, you want to have an operating agreement, you want to have an independent contractor agreement, and you want to have some kind of IP protection in the form of a work for hire agreement, okay? Everyone got that? I know it's a lot, but, oh, and then
Can I give a scenario with that relating to this?
can I ask for a pause for
Yes.
1 second because we're almost done with the checklist. Okay, thank you. For 7, this is the best part. You want to acquire capital because remember I said I bootstrapped my company, right? I don't want you to do the same. There are grants. Grants are free money that you don't have to pay back. SBA has grants. There's grants for minorities. There's grants for women. There's grants for people who are neurodivergent. Whatever you have going on, there's probably a grant for you, okay? So look for it, apply for it. And also, I know people have feelings about ChatGPT, but it can be very helpful with grant writing, okay? So it can help you make a lot of grant applications in a very short period of time. We all need it, it happens, but if you need a loan, try your best to do it through the SBA. They have really helpful loan percentages that you have to pay back. They're not that expensive. So I have a list there for you. And then we talked about trademarks more than I thought we were going to do. But you can discuss any trademark issues with an attorney. You can do it with a legal clinic. Like I said, FIU has a law school. They have a law clinic. And if you don't know what a legal clinic is or a law clinic is, that's a law school will give the lawyers, so the students, a chance to learn how to actually practice law, right? And those legal clinics allow them to do it. They do under the supervision of an attorney professor, okay? So you know that you're not getting bad work. There's somebody who's gonna be quality controlling it. And it's a great way for them to practice. And it's a great way for you to take advantage and get free work that normally you'd have to pay an attorney like me between $250 to $500 an hour for. Yes? Normally you do. There's literally a link to the business and I wrote it wrong. I put invocation, but the Business and Innovation Technology Clinic with FIU. So you can actually apply there. You can click on the link or you can just go to the law school and ask. I think it's always best to try to go to the law school and ask. Talk to them. Yeah, they're great. And I maybe because I'm pushy, because I'm a lawyer, but I find that sometimes it's best to go in person because if you send something on a website, it gets lost, right?
Sometimes, you go to a place and they'll be like, yeah, we're not gonna talk to you,
The worst they can say is no, right? But sometimes I've gotten really good outcomes just because at the end of the day, business or anything is human, right? So if you can get somebody to talk to you face to face, maybe you don't get help, but somebody will be like, hey, I can't help you here, but they'll give you to another place where you actually could get more help. So I think it's always worth, even if you get turned away, just at least going and finding out. Okay? So that's a good question. All right, and then the last one, don't forget yours. You want to set up an accounting and record keeping system for your business. Now, QuickBooks is what everybody says to use. QuickBooks is expensive when you're starting out, and it's very confusing. There is something called Wave, which is free. If you make under, I think it's 100,000 maybe, you can use it for free. It's pretty easy to use. It's pretty easy to simple to set up. I think they don't pay me, but I've used it before for one of my other businesses, right? So using that, especially when you're starting out, is helpful. It has the capability of QuickBooks. It's easier to use, and it's not as expensive because it's free. You can also invoice people through Wave, which is important. And then payment-wise, this is something you want to keep in mind. When you do payments, you always want to have an invoice and you always want to have a receipt. That's important, okay? And you can, if you're going to be paying customers or you're going to be, well, not paying customers, but if you're going to be paying vendors or if you're going to be paying your independent contractors, make sure to always have the proper forms, a W-9, make sure to have, their 1099s done. And then what's the last thing that I wanted to say about this before I get to Dimitri's question? If you're going to send money transfers, do not use Cash App. Do not use Venmo. Your accountant's going to yell at you. It has implications for you when it comes to your taxes. If you're going to do that, use Zelle. Zelle is the loophole. Everybody heard it from me first, okay? Zelle is a loophole. Because it's a bank-to-bank transfer, if you use Zelle, it's easier because Cash App and Venmo are third-party processor apps, whereas Zelle is literally you're doing it through the bank.
This is for business to business transactions like invoice services and things
Yeah, like I had an intern. I paid her for her summer internship. It was a paid internship. I did it through Zelle.
So if you set up, let's say, Wells Fargo business account,
Mm-hmm.
you get Zelle built in.
Yes.
System.
Yes, and it's already integrated, so you don't have to do anything extra. And there's processing fees with, Cash App, with Venmo. So you just, if you can, just do Zelle or do an electronic funds transfer if you can. Okay. That's my end of my checklist. Thank you for showing up to my TED Talk. Thank you guys. You were great. Okay.